Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is Robin Hood and the Merry Men. Robin Hood and the Merry Men comes to you from Final Frontier Games, the publishers of two excellent and amazing games, Cavern Tavern and Rise to Nobility. I did videos for those a while back, and I just absolutely loved them. And when they contacted me and asked me if I was interested in taking a look at this, I'll admit I was a little upset. I shouldn't say upset, but I was a little disappointed because, like, Cavern Tavern, it was in the same world as Rise to Nobility. Like, you know, Rise to Nobility actually has the Cavern Tavern in it, so I was kind of excited to see where they're going to go, and, like, even, like, a bigger world kind of aspect, and then Rise to Nobility would, you know, kind of a, like that, what are those canister egg jar things where you open them up and there's like another thing inside and so on and so forth. So anyway, I was kind of hoping that I was going to see that happen, but maybe they will still, I don't know. But this is a fantastic semi-co-op game where each person is going to be taking on the role of Robin Hood or one of the leaders of the Merry Men, and you're going to combine two, like, very distinct aspects of the game. You're going to, like, collect resources, and you're going to work at, like, improving yourself and improving, like, the different things that you and the other players are going to be doing as far as, you know, keeping the sheriff and his evil guards at bay, and making sure that you don't actually, like, get defeated in the game. But along the way, you also are going to be taking, like, very significant actions with your heroes that will, be used to, I guess, for lack of a better term, the heroes, like, combat, like, have a more active combative role against the sheriff and Prince John, and so, you know, the classic, you know, Robin Hood story, and you combine those two elements and into a really, really fun way of tackling this theme, and a really, really good semi-co-op feel. I know semi-co-op games kind of, you know, they run the risk of, like people, like, just tanking the game, but I mean, because, oh, I'm not going to win, I'm just going to, everybody loses, bah, you know, but that doesn't happen in this game because of the fact that you kind of can see everybody staying the same, at the same point, the same level as far as the victory points go, because of the fact that, like, you don't really score a big chunk of victory points until, like, the end of the game, and you see, like, where you've ended up on reputation tracks, and whether or not you sent your merry men off to the Crusades, or you have these cards in your hand that, like, dictate, like, special bonus points and things like that. So you don't ever run into that problem. But I'll talk about that more here in a little bit. Let me show you a good general gist of how to play the game, and go ahead and check it out. You can download the rules or whatever if you want to go ahead and get those at your side. You can kind of read those along as I go through how this game is played. So here we go, Robin Hood and the Merry Men. Alright, so here we have Robin Hood and the Merry Men, and this is a fabulous looking game, and this is actually a prototype that I was sent. So even though this looks great, just keep that in mind as I am describing it, because what the game will look like once it is published may look slightly different or what have you. But anyway, regardless, this is the main board, as you can probably guess. Each person will get a little player board like so, and each person will also get a hero. In this case, I just chose Little John as my hero. Each hero has a special power that kind of just breaks the rules. For example, like Will Scarlet here, when he attacks red and blue carriages, he only has to roll one die to be able to attack them. Normally, like, it takes 2 dice, so he breaks the rules in that way. Little John can purchase a weapon during the hero phase as a free action, so he can just automatically do it. So they just, you know, break the rules in some way. And I'll say this a couple times probably, but the art is fantastic, as I've come to expect the Final Frontier publisher. I mean, they just knock it out of the park. But anyway, regardless, each person has this player board. They start off with one of each resource, like the money, the wine, which is a distraction token, which you use to enable some rerolls and to distract like the guards and things like that, distract the sheriff. It's actually the wine that Friar Tuck creates in this area over here. It's kind of neat. But anyway, each person has these 5 barricades and these 5 traps. And the barricades are placed on these roads, and I'll explain how all this works here in just a little bit. Are placed on the roads to stop these carriages from, like, getting to the the castle. When carriages get to the castle, what they do is they take these stacks of coins. They take some of the coins off of these stacks, and this is a semi-co-op, meaning that, like, yes, you are contending against each other, but you can lose the game. Like, everybody loses, so you want to make sure that you don't like, lose all the coins. And you can replenish the coins, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but that's one way that the game can be over. You also have these little traps, as I said, and the traps will go in these hideouts. Like, you can see there's these hideouts, and you can also see there's already some of these royal guards in some of these. That's the way it's set up. The traps are placed in these locations because if a royal guard gets placed in there, the person that has the trap in there is able to take the guard, and they're able to claim them as a captive, which the captive can then be traded back to Prince John and the sheriff to, like, get their own prisoners out of prison, or to exchange them for victory points or other things as well. These are, and the reason why you want to make sure you build traps is because that if any of these locations in which they have these hideouts, if ever those get completely filled with guards, meaning that all of the hideout locations are filled and also the main location is filled, you also lose the game. So, and nobody wins. So that's another one of the semi-co-op aspects of it. Alright, so on the board also you have your hero meeple, which you'll be using only during the hero phase. You have 3 merry men. Normally you have 3 merry men available to you every turn. You notice that there are 3 other merry men available in the training area. This isn't a game technically really where you have a situation where like you go to a spot to unlock another worker or whatever. You can unlock another merry man by building barricades. There are rewards underneath these things where, like, if you build them and you'll get a reward for doing so with traps and also with barricades. But under this 4th spot of the barricade, you can see there's another meeple there. When that happens, what you do is you add this little token down onto your area here, so that when you replenish, you'll actually have 4 on your player board, and so you'll have access to 4. But a little ahead of myself, since we can't do that. But the big thing is that you have 3, right? And you can lose some. Some of them can end up in the dungeon, and you have to break them out. They can even be executed here if they actually get all the way through the dungeon and they end up in the gallows and they are actually killed, and that's worth, like, and those are worth negative points at the end of the game. You can also send them off on Crusades over here. In which case then they're gone, but they earn you a bunch of victory points. So there's lots of different ways, but for the most part, the game only lasts 5 rounds, so keep that in mind, that, like, you have to be kind of efficient with the actions that you take, but also the fact that you shouldn't be scared of sending one off to the Crusades, for example, because that's a really efficient way to get a lot of victory points, and this isn't a game where you're going to earn a ton of victory points. It's going to be a pretty close race. You'll notice that the scoring track only goes to 50, and I haven't had anybody score even close to 50 yet in the games that I've played. So, so there you go. All right, so the way the game is played is pretty simple. If you played, but it's got 2 really, really distinct phases, and I liken the first phase to classic, like, kind of resource collection, worker placement type of mentality, and then the second phase is actually where, like, the co-op aspect comes in, because that's when the game kind of fights back at you a little bit, and you have to react to what they're doing. But anyway, so at the beginning of the game, each person's going to get 4 of these Merry Men cards. Let me show you these cards here. The cards have like a picture of your merry men, or merry woman, if you will, and on there, and the picture of the person doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything at all. All that matters to you is the stuff that's on the bottom. There's 2 things you want to look at. Over here, it could possibly be worth victory points, and I'll explain how they can earn victory points at the end of the game here in just a little bit. But over here, it tells you what action they will actually affect if you use them. So when you place one of your workers, when you go to a spot, you have the option, and this is in the spots where you have this option, and this is in these main resource gathering areas here, 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 here. When you go to those locations, you have the option of placing your worker either in the middle or in an empty hideout. Now, if you place it in the middle, it's pretty simple, and I moved that carriage by accident, but when you place it in the middle, what happens then is that you just get the base reward. So in case this is like the weapons area, so if you place it here, and you would just get one weapon, and then you'd be able to choose one of you know, the weapons over there to claim, and then be able to use that later on. As the weapons die, you're able to use them for several different things, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. However, if you have a character, like say this guy right here, where he has this weapon, that designates weapon area, and you can see he'd be able to get 2 weapons. So you could take him and you could place your Merry Man in one of the empty hideouts. Now you can't go in the same place as a guard is, and then you could take the enhanced reward for doing so. Now, let's say you wanted to go and get a weapon, but you didn't have one of these people. Now, you have to have one of those to be able to take the action that is in that, like, to take the enhanced action. But let's say you didn't have one. You can then take one of these cards, and you use it as a passive card. And I've kind of blocked myself out a little bit here. But you place them on that section of your board. And that's where that 1 victory point comes up. When you place them on that side of the board, if they remain there for the rest of the game, at the end of the game, you'll get that bonus victory point. However, one of the really cool things about it is that later on in the game, if later on I decided, notice how this Merry Man, or Merry Woman, I should say, has the enhanced action for the church location of be able to take 2 of these tokens, the wine tokens. I could go over here on a later turn, and if I have her over there in the passive section, I could say, I'm going to use her as an active card, and I'm going to place them over here. Notice that whenever your card is used actively, they are normally then discarded at the end of the round. So you just place them over here to kind of show that if you're going to be active or passive when you take your action. But I think that's really cool, actually, because normally, like, you're always like, oh, I mean, you have cards that can be used for multiple different things, and then you're like, oh, but, you know, I don't want to use this one up, so later on maybe I want to get that one. But you can, because of the fact that basically you're saving that card until a later time. And I really like that you have that option. It kind of opens up the game a little bit, and you know, you don't feel as constricted, if you will. Alright, so you have like that, and you'll do that for all of your workers. You take a turn, somebody else takes a turn, somebody else takes a turn, so on and so forth. And you'll do that in these different locations. So just so you know, I mean, like here you get the weapons. Over here is like the iron, like smelting. You can get iron here. Over here you get at the like sawmill, you get wood. Here's where you get the wine distraction tokens, like I said. Here's where you get tools. And then the other, like, maybe kind of interesting spots are, like here, you can actually go, and this is considered to be robbing the rich, and I'll explain that in just a moment here. But robbing the rich allows you to get loot tokens that you're able to then cash in for certain rewards. So let me actually just show you how robbing the rich works. Now again, the Robbing the Rich location has a main area, which you just, you play a passive card over there to take it in that particular turn, or it has the hideouts where you can place them as well. If you place them in a hideout, you have to make sure that you have the Robbing the Rich icon, which is that, and notice how it says +1 die. And that means that you're allowed to use +1 die during one phase of Robbing the Rich. So the way Robbing the Rich works is, and it might be tough to see, but there's this thing where it has these 3 arrows, and then 2 arrows, and 1 arrow. And so you have these dice, and these are like 50-50 dice. Half the sides have the shield, and half the sides have these targets. And the targets are what you're going for. So what you're going to do when you rob the rich is you're going to go ahead and you're going to roll these 3, and you're going to hope you get a hit. In this case, as I knock my guy flying, I got a hit, meaning that I have succeeded, which means that I now have the right to reach into this bag and draw 1 loot token out of it. Now, if I want to continue and press my luck, what I can do is I could now roll 2 dice and try to also get a hit. Now, remember, if I played the character there and I have that +1 die, I could now use my +1 die and I could roll 3 dice if I wanted to. Or, if I wanted to take the chance of having 2 dice and getting another hit and I want to go for the third one, I could go ahead and use my +1 die then. So let's see if I get lucky here. We'll roll again. And I got a hit. I got 2 hits, actually. So now I get to the final spot. Instead of having to roll 1 die, I can roll 2 dice and see if my luck holds out. And yes, I actually got hits, 2 hits. I rolled really well. That never happens. But anyway, so then what happens is I get to reach into this loot bag, and I'm going to draw out 3 tokens because I have succeeded in robbing the rich, if you will. And then my tokens will actually just tell me what resources that I succeed in stealing. And I can go ahead and place those in my hideout and when I grab those loot. Now, if I had failed at any one of those locations, what happens is that my merry man gets arrested and he goes over here into the dungeon, in the first level of the dungeon. Now you might notice that there's these victory point of 2, 3, and 4 there. Those are negatives. If at the end of the game my merry man is in prison at any of these locations, they're worth negative. And it's even worse if they've been executed. And basically what happens is each successive turn that they stay in prison, they become more and more deeper into level, and they're tougher to break out. When they go to prison, you do actually enact a penalty. And the penalty is any resource that you have. And you just would place that, actually, like, you place resource into this little spot there, which is, like, considered to be, like, the sheriff's collections, if you will. And those can be actually stolen back when you fight the sheriff, or when you contend with the sheriff later. But you go there. If you can't pay the fine, you immediately go to level 2 of the dungeon. And the further you get into the dungeon, the tougher it is to break them out. But I'll talk about that also here when we're talking about the hero phase, which we're going to skip to right now. So after everybody's placed their workers, they're going to be all over the place as far as different locations. A couple of things that you have to keep in mind. That if your merry men are in hideouts and the guards get activated and go to those hideouts, they will arrest the merry men that are in those locations. So when while placing them into these hideouts, it gives you that bonus as far as like to your collection or what have you, or to the action. You are putting your merry men at risk when you do that. And then of course you're going to be expending a lot of time and effort trying to get them out of prison to do so. And also it should be mentioned that if other people bust out your people out of prison for you, yes, you get your worker back, but they actually get victory points for doing so. So you might end up actually helping somebody else win in the process of doing that. Oh, before I talk about the hero phase, I want to talk about one other thing. There is the construction area, and the construction area is right over here. And also the Crusades area. So the construction of the Crusades area has no limit to the number of people you put there. You can put as many merry men as you want on there. To go to the Crusades, you have to spend you have to spend 1 cube, 2 coins, and 3 weapons. And you can send one of your merry men off to the Crusade. You lose them for the rest of the game, but at the end of the game, they'll earn you victory points, according to how high up on the reputation track you travel, for each one that you send. And you'll notice at the top level here, it's worth 8 victory points if you have one of your people, if your reputation gets up there, if you have somebody in the Crusades. So if you have a couple of your merry men in Crusades, that's a really good way to get some victory points. So even though, yes, you're giving up a worker forever, it is a very, very good way to, be able to get like victory points to kind of pull out the win at the very end. But anyway, so construction is how you build the traps and the barricades. And when you go here with the worker, what will happen is that you'll pick which spots you wish to build a barricade or build a trap. And what you do then is you just look at the different spots. So like if you want to build a trap, it costs 3 wood to build a one at the lumber mill. It costs 3 iron ore to build one at the smelters. Things like that. Pretty straightforward. And then when you do that, then obviously, as I said before, as I showed, you just place the trap in those locations, and then they are set up there in order to like capture guards that should come in. Same thing with the barricades. So like if we wanted to go to like the East Road, it takes 3 tools and one silver penny to do it. So then I would go and I would place a barricade on the East Road by doing so. And the barricades are good because it prevents whenever a road gets activated, the carriages will move past one barricade. And there's one barricade set up automatically at the beginning of each road, but they'll move past one barricade and they'll stop at the next one. And so, like, the more barricades you have in each road, the longer it'll take carriages to reach the center, reach the castle, and then they won't be taking away the coins from each road, which is a possible way, as I said, that you can lose the game. Alright, so now I'll talk about the hero phase. So the first thing you do in the hero phase is you're going to go ahead and you're going to draw the top card off this sheriff deck. And the top card is going to tell you several different things. It's going to tell you if you're going to activate a road. Not all cards will activate roads. It'll also tell you where you're going to place the sheriff and where you're going to place the guards. And so according to this card here, we're going to go ahead and place the sheriff in the archery range location. And we are going to go ahead and place the guard over at the sawmill, it looks like. So, and I'm going to kind of set it up so we can actually just like see a couple things happen here. Oh, and then the East Road gets activated as well. So the way you do that is the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to resolve, like, you place the sheriff in the location. So the sheriff's going to be in this location over here, and they're overseeing where the prize competition, the archery competition, takes place. And just so we can actually show you how this works, let's go ahead and say that red had a person right there, and we're going to go ahead and place the guard in the location where that merry man is. So the merry man has been arrested and is in danger of ending up going to the prison unless he is saved during the hero phase. So now, since he's been arrested, the person who is playing red has to place what they're going to be fined, next to that particular worker. Because if he can be saved, then that won't go away. So let's just say he puts one of these distraction tokens by it. So he puts a wine token. So that is what, theoretically, if his merry man is arrested, will go to the sheriff over here. Now, it should be mentioned that if you aren't able to, like, you have no resources whatsoever left over, and you can't place the token underneath your meeple, then they immediately go to prison. So there's nothing you can do about that. All right. So also, I should mention that if you actually do place the sheriff at one of these other locations, he normally would take guards with him. You'd put 2 guards, if possible, in those locations as well. But because he went to the archery range, we don't do that. We just leave them there. And if the way the sheriff works is that if whatever location he's in, if you want to be able to go ahead and use that spot, you have to distract him with a distraction token in order to do so. So after you've set up all of that and you've taken care of that, now is when the players can each take their hero actions. Oh, I apologize. There's one other thing you do before you actually draw the sheriff card or anything like that, before you know anything that's going on, is that you do a draft of weapons. So basically each person's going to get 2 dice. And then you replenish that with dice if people purchase some during the other phase. But regardless, what happens is that starting with the first player, they pick 1 die, then the next player picks a die, and so on and so forth. When you get to the 4th player, and this is a 4-player game, obviously, in a 3-player game it would be the 3rd player, 2-player game would be the 2nd player. But like in the 4th player then gets to take 2 dice, and then you kind of serpentine back to the 1st player. So each person's going to have 2 dice. Now, the color of the dice, each one of these dice is exactly the same. They have 4 spots that have a weapon on them, so this is like the staff, and they have 2 spots that have the shield on them, meaning that they have a 2 and 3 shot of giving you a good result. However, depending upon the actions that you want to take, you have to have certain colors. You'll notice that, like here, it has the staff and the axe. Here it has the bow and the axe, and so on and so forth. You'll notice that the carriages are certain colors. If you want to attack a carriage and rob it, you have to have, normally, have 2 dice of that color in order to rob it. So if you wanted to rob this carriage right here, you would need 2 red dice to be able to do it. So the color, while the weapons all function exactly the same as far as the die rolls, the actual the color matters because it depends on like what you can actually affect and what you can use those weapons for. All right, so each hero can get 2 moves, and fighting guards and robbing carriages are kind of almost the same thing as far as the action to do it. When you take your hero, you just place it in the spot that you want to do. So if you want to rob this carriage, you go to that spot. What you're going to do is you're going to take those dice that you have. Remember, you have to have at least 2, unless you're Will Scarlet. You have to have at least 2 dice to be able to attack the carriage. So in this case, it is, you know, a red carriage. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and roll. And I just realized, I apologize for this, when we activated that east road, not only did we have to move one forward, but we actually had to draw another carriage. So let me just draw one randomly here. And, okay, so then there's a green carriage right there as well. All right, so I'm going to attack that carriage, and I'm looking for a hit. Let me see if I get one. So I got a hit, and then I would successfully attack that carriage. With that hero action, what you're going to do is you're going to take that carriage, and there's this big, large area here, this track, if you will. And what you're going to do is you will place them down, turn on the carriage on its side to show that it was a robbed carriage, and then you get the reward for the location that you're going to place that down on. Now, if you have carriages that actually successfully meet and get into the castle, you place them face up and you start at the top and you go like that. The number of coins underneath it tell you how many of how many coins get claimed out of the road that it was taken from. So, it's something to think about as far as, where you place this, because if you place them over here, you can actually get better rewards, but you are actually then placing that, so it's easier for this to get filled up and get down to the higher numbers of coins to damage these roads that you have to maintain, or else you lose the game. Cool little thing about the game I really liked and how it worked. But anyway, so if you still have dice, so let's say I also had 2 green dice, and I should mention at most any player can have is 4 dice at any time. So let's say we had 2 green dice, and for the same action, I could roll and see if I get another hit, and I could see if I take out another carriage on that same location, and I could go ahead and place that on there like that. So it is kind of a cool thing where, if you have the right combination of dice, you can kind of chain those things together, and you can have a pretty good turn and take out more than 1 carriage at once. Now, fighting guards and locations, let's just say, okay, we're going to go here, because we're going to try to fight this guard and take him back. You would need either red or blue weapons to be able to fight. So let's just say you have these 2 blue weapons. Once again, you're looking for hits to allow you to take out that guard. Now, there's no minimum or maximum. There's a maximum of 4 dice. That's the most dice you can have. But you can roll 1 die if you want to do the attack. So let's just see if I get lucky with 1 die attacking that 1 guard. And I do. I get lucky. I got an axe. So what then happens is I defeat that guard. You don't capture him because you killed him. And then you return that merry man to the other player. But then you get to claim that resource and keep it because of the fact that that's kind of your reward. And you also get a victory point for doing so. If you defeat a guard or defeat a carriage, you get to move up on the reputation marker for doing so. And that's one of the big ways that you get reputation, is by defeating these enemies. Alright, so another hero action you can do is breaking out prisoners. Let's just place a couple prisoners in there just so we can kind of see how this works. Okay, so you place these in there, and in order to break prisoners out, you have to have wine. because you're getting the guards drunk and you're getting the chance to do it. For every for every one token you have, you get 2 dice, and these are going to be the skills dice, not the weapons dice. And once again, you're just going for hits. You need a hit that will enable you to defeat a guard. But to get somebody out of level 1, you have to defeat 1 guard. To get one out of level 2, you need 2 successes. Let me just put a 3rd one down there so I can just kind of show you how this works. Now, the weird thing, the thing about this is that you can't mix and match. So let's just say I spent 3 distraction tokens and I got all 6 of these dice. Let me just see what I get. So let's see, I got 2 fails and I got 4 successes. So, and actually, I'm gonna kind of mix things up a little bit. Let's say red had a really bad turn and they got 3 people in prison right there. All right, so with these 4 successes, I could get 1 person out of level 3, or 1 person out of level 2, or actually here, let me put a 2nd person level 2. I could get 2 people out of level 2, or I could get all 3 of these out of level 1. Now, I can't mix and match. I can't go, I'm going to get 1 person out of level 3 and 1 person out of level 1. You can only get the people out like in one spot and return them to people's, to the other people. And the thing is that this is a situation where you might be tempted, obviously, to let some other players, like meeples rot and head to the gallows, because it is worth a lot of negative points for doing so. However, for rescuing merrymen that are not yours, you get victory points. So you're gonna get like 4 victory points if they're in level 3, 3 victory points if they're in level 2, and 2 victory points if they're level 1. And then also you're going to get 3, 2, and 1 possessions out of the sheriff's bag for rescuing other people's merrymen. You don't get that for rescuing your own, but I mean it is the incentive for other people to help you out, obviously. Now the last thing you can do, and this is where the sheriff is, you can go compete in the archery competition. Now, this is a staple in all, like, seemingly all of the Robin Hood movies I've ever seen, you know, where he splits the arrow or whatever. So, this action, now, if you went to the same place where the sheriff is, you have to spend a distraction token to be able to go there. If you don't have it, you can't go there. So what'll happen then is it's kind of like the pushing your luck before of, you know, robbing the rich. What you're gonna do is you're gonna roll 3 dice, and then and then for 1 success you get 1 penny, for 2 successes you get 2 pennies, and for 3 successes you're gonna get 3 pennies, and you also get 5 victory points if you succeed. So like the first one you roll, you got a success, and you know, so woohoo, I got a success. So you know you've gotten past the first level because you got 1 success. The second time you need 2 successes on 3 dice. Let's see if I do it. Of course I don't. I roll 3 shields, and then you would fail. But if you manage to get 2 successes, you would pass that. And then the last one, you need 3 successes. And of course, I got 2. And then you'd be able to do it. Now, the one thing is you can spend 2 distraction tokens to re-roll a die. So if you want to keep going and try to get for that 5 victory points, that is an option for you. Alright, so after everybody's taken their 2 hero actions, then you're just going to reset the board. People are going to take their merrymen back, place them on there. If you have merrymen either in prison or off in the Crusades, and you can't collect 3, that's when you take them out of the training area. So you have the 3. And then you just do the same thing again. You're going to do this over 5 turns. You're going to earn victory points along the way for doing certain actions like we talked about. And then at the end, after the 5 rounds, you will earn victory points for how low, like depending upon like how many barricades and traps that you built. You know, and depending upon your reputation, and also like the merrymen you sent off to the Crusades, as well as I said earlier. Plus, at the beginning of the game, you do get 3 of these tasks that King Richard gave you, and depending upon you'll earn bonus victory points for completing certain aspects of each task. You know, as far as things that you'll accomplish as well, and those are kept secret, and you only get 3 of them during the game. But like, you know, for example, this will give you 1 victory point for every 2 silver pennies that are still left on the East Road. Or, that's the same one for the North Road. But there's other ones here, let me grab. Yeah, like this one. For every level you went up on the reputation track, you'll get a victory point. And stuff like that. So, you know, you do have your own secret way of, like, you know, turning in and getting bonus victory points at the very end. So there you go. I mean, that's Robin Hood, and that, I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, and there's a lot going on, but this one does bridge that gap really, really well between, you know, the like classic collection Euro like engine, you know, creating the different things that you need to do. Lots of cool card play going on. The ability to construct things, you know, color coding as far as the different locations and having the right dice, some cool dice rolling effects as well, which I always like placed in Euros. But it really bridges. I really like the cooperative aspect of it because of the fact that it does make you make good, tough choices. You know, do I make choices that are going to help me win, or do I make choices that are going to help us all not to lose? And so you kind of have to make those decisions and those as the game is played. So, you know, it just with every game that they come up with, they just seem to knock it out of the park every single time. And this is no exception at all. But let me talk more about Robin Hood and the Merry Men in my final thoughts. Oh, there we go. Ooh, look at that. Robin Hood and the Merry Men. I should say, you know, I always thought it was Robin Hood and his Merry Men, but I guess this is just and the Merry Men. So, all right, so I've already, a couple other things. They keep going with the same artist, and that's fantastic. I love that continuity. And maybe, just maybe, Robin Hood and the Merry Men is located somewhere in the Rise to Nobility universe. But whatever, doesn't really matter. So I've already kind of talked about the things that I really liked about it. I do really enjoy a good worker placement Euro that has a constrictive locations. I like the fact that you have this card play. You know, I should mention one other thing. When you, the cards, remember I said the passive side where you have the cards, you do get fresh cards each turn. You can discard the ones you have in your hand. If you get like a bum hand of cards, you can discard them and then draw back up to 4. And also one of the bonuses of the game is, like, as you build those traps and build those barricades, you actually can draw up to 5 cards. So that's something that's really good as well. But regardless, so you do kind of go through a whole reset action when each turn is done. But there is only 5 turns in the game, and I can't express that enough. You know, I mean, and it is one of those things where the math of it kind of works out, where it's like, okay, well, one of my guys got arrested, but it's like the 4th turn. There's no way he's going to get executed. But here's the deal. They're worth negative points at the end of the game if they're still in prison. So you want to get them out, right? And because of the fact that, like, this game is in a weird situation where, you know, you have such few turns, and, you know, it isn't a game where, you know, everybody's scoring hundreds of points. Those little, like, minuses, those -2, -3 points, whatever, that you get, those are huge at the end of the game, and every little point comes. So you got to make sure that you're getting those people out. And also, anytime one of your people heads to prison, it's just a big giant, you know, save me, I'm worth victory points, save me, you know, and people are going to gun for it and try to get them. So you try to keep them out of prison as much as possible. But anyway, just, you know, the games that they created before with Cavern Tavern and Rise to Nobility, they have this. I mean, the way this publisher is creating their games is that the mechanisms of the game just are interwoven with each other, and not only are they interwoven, but they just make sense, and everything is just kind of it has like an organic feel to it. And that's one of the reasons why I think I've really enjoyed these games that they've been creating, because of that, like, just kind of, you know, like, if I was smart enough to make a game I'd make games like this, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, as you play it and the mechanisms click together, like the puzzle that they are, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And it's like you get that little smile on your face as you're playing it. You know, and I always refer to that, like your little smile, like as you play. And I look for that when I played this, and I showed it to other people, and I brought it to a game night recently, and I had people play it, and I was looking at them, and they're just like, I see that little light in the back of their head go off, and they're like, oh, okay, I get this now, you know. And as far as the whole thing about, like, because you only have 3 actions with the 3 merry men, like, putting those cards passively for a bigger turn later, things like that, where you can kind of enrich a later turn, stuff like that going on. Placing the different carriages when you rob them onto the track, and you know, for the rewards, and deciding where you want to put those. Really wanted to use a merry man in a location, but you know, do I run the risk of having them arrested? You know, by either when the sheriff brings guards along, or just a guard being placed there. Do I build up a barricade? You know, because I realize that's one thing I didn't talk about. When, like, a sheriff actually activates or goes to a location, he'll actually tear down the barricades that are there and like push the carriages forward. So like things like that can happen as well. I also should mention that when that board where all the carriages go down, when it gets filled up, you do actually like pick up all those carriages, and you depending upon how many were robbed, then you're going to activate. You go through this like basically upcharge of the taxes. So it is when that gets filled up, both a combination of the carriages that make it to the castle and also the carriages that are robbed, it's a bad thing. And like there's lots of activations as like carriages kind of start encroaching. So, and luckily, like once again, you have 5 turns, and you know that'll maybe happen once as the game is played. But you know, still when that happens, it definitely just gives you this impending doom feeling because of the fact that, yes, it starts eating up the coins on those different tracks. So there's cool stuff like that going on. You know, as far as, you know, just like the feel that like you maybe just aren't going to be able to keep the sheriff at bay long enough for you to reach the end of the game and see who wins. You know, just because of the limited number of hero actions you have to defeat those guards and get rid of them, and also defeat those carriages. I mean, it's just it's a tough thing, and when somebody actually fails at it and like doesn't roll the dice and doesn't get the needed results that they need, that's very debilitating, and it could very well speak for the end of the game. And a lot of times when you play semi, I'm kind of going off in a rant here, but a lot of times when you play semi co-op, you never ever really feel like you're going to lose the co-op part of it, right? It's just like, it seems like the co-op part has just been kind of tacked on. And you know, you don't actually feel like the game's going to beat you. But I've lost, flat out lost this game. This game that is like, you dictate a winner at the end, several times now. Because it's just, we've had a bad turn. And I like that. And, you know, because it kind of, you know, it spurs you to want to play the game again. You want to make sure that, oh man, we got to work harder together. You know, and we can't be so combative. And finding that balance adds a whole nother level to the game. And it's really, really enjoyable. So, yeah, I mean, if you've liked the stuff they've made before, I'm excited by this new avenue that they went off into and explored. If you've enjoyed their stuff, you're really, really like this. I would strongly suggest also, I know they have like a deluxe version you can get that looks fantastic. That you check that out on their Kickstarter page. And yeah, there you go. That is Robin Hood and the Merry Men. If you have any questions about it, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.